Latino voters are the fastest growing demographic in the United States, and one of the many problems facing 2016 presidential candidates is obtaining the Latino vote. Here to talk about with us today is Ana Gonzalez Barrera. She is a research associate at the Pew Research Center, and here to talk with us via Skype today. Ana, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So can you talk a little bit about some of the results gathered by Pew recently regarding the Latino vote?
Sure. During our research, we have found that the Latino electorate has been growing very rapidly in the U.S. in the past 20 years, actually. In the last election, there was a record of 25 million Hispanics who were eligible to vote. And that also was a record share of the electorate. They represented 11% of the electorate. However, Latinos are less likely than other groups to vote. They have a turnout rate that's slightly less than half. In 2012 presidential election, that's the last number we have, they only about 49% came out and voted. So that was about only 11 million, and we had a record in 2010 election of about 11 million, 2008 election of about 12 million who had come out and voted. So we actually saw a drop in the number of Latino electors who came out and voted from 2010 to 2008 to 2012.
It's very interesting. You mentioned that even though there's more Latinos eligible to vote, there's less likely to turn out in the last presidential election. Another survey you guys did said that Latino support for the Democratic Party is actually falling. What do you think could be the cause of that decline, and do you think that's a trend we could see continue?
I couldn't hear you.
Did you hear me? A survey done by you guys at Pew that says Latino support for the Democratic Party has been falling. Do you think that's a trend that could be continuing in the 2016 presidential election?
2016 presidential election, we really don't know what's going to happen. The Latino vote actually has been swinging around a lot. It definitely is majority Democratic, so around 60% votes Democratic. However, there's a share, there's about 10 to 15% of the Latino vote that's sort of a swing vote. So we have seen in the past that it has swung towards the Republican Party. That happened with the President Bush, W. Bush. And it might happen again in 2016. It really depends on who are the candidates next election and what type of outreach the parties do.
So in a survey also done around the midterm election showed that a candidate's position on immigration reform wouldn't impact the vote of being a Latino voter. But do you think this could change potentially going forward, or do you think that immigration is still going to be the staple issue for Latino voters?
Immigration has never been the number one issue for Latino voters. Number one issue has usually been jobs and the economy, followed by education and healthcare. However, you never know what's going to come in the agenda next time, so it could happen. But definitely is one of the important issues for the voters, and for some of them, it's even a deal breaker.
So looking at the Latino vote in 2008 and the 2012 presidential election, how do you think the demographic of Latino voters has changed since then, and how do you think it could be changing potentially even going forward?
Well, most Latinos, or the electorate that is growing, it's growing mostly because of Latinos coming of age and being eligible to vote, and this is Latinos who are U.S. born. So we see an electorate that's really young, that has been born and raised in the U.S., so that means that they're also native speakers of English. So it's a little bit different, but like any other electorate that's very young, it's a lot less engaged in voting.
So one of the final questions we have for you is today the news, obviously, other than Hillary Clinton announcing her candidacy, is that Marco Rubio has now announced his candidacy to become president. Article in the Washington Times today actually said that Marco Rubio is unlikely to win the GOP Hispanic vote. Have you done any research on this? And if you have, do you think that it's found similar findings, or do you think that he actually will obtain most of the Latino GOP vote?
We haven't done a lot of research, particularly based on future elections for Marco Rubio. However, 2 years ago, we did run a survey about leadership among Hispanics, and we asked a question of who was the number one or the most important Latino leader in the U.S. And even though the majority of Hispanics could not name anybody or would say there wasn't anybody who was a leader, for those who did name a leader, Marco Rubio was one of the personalities that got a higher share of Latinos naming him spontaneously. And particularly, he got mentioned more prominently among GOP Latinos and also Cuban Latinos.
Ana Gonzalez Barrera, once again from the Pew Research Center, thank you so much again for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Coming up, we'll hear from youth voters about what they would like to see from the next U.S. president.